Three, two, one. Hello, everyone listening to us on the Virtual Jug podcast. Greetings to everyone watching on YouTube. Really happy that you found your way here. My name is Alex Shalaev, and welcome to the Rebel Labs interview with a Virtual Jug speaker. So this week we have an excellent treat. We have two speakers at the same time. Welcome our guests, Richard Warburton, an independent software engineer and trainer. He's on the right on the screen if you have the video. He's an empirical technologist and a problem solver. He recently has written a book on Java 8 Lambdas, and he's a world-famous conference speaker, leader of London Java community, and as the subject of my personal envy, Richard has a PhD in computer science from the University of Warwick. So find him and socialize with him on Twitter. He's at Richard Warburton. And Richard, how are you today?
Good.
Excellent.
Enjoyed the VJug webinar on generics.
Everything was fine. The technology didn't fail you.
No, it worked.
Great. Welcome our second guest, Raoul-Gabriel Urma, on the left.
Hello.
Hi, Raoul. He's an instructor and a frequent conference speaker, also an author of books on Java, like Java 8 in Action. He's a co-founder of Cambridge Coding Academy and a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, whatever that is. He's a Master of Engineering and working towards the PhD in computer science, obviously, at the University of Cambridge. So that's a good feat to add to your honor list. So in the past, you worked for very few giant companies like Google, eBay. So you've seen things and you probably have loads of experience to share with people. Hi, Ro. How are you?
Very good, Alex. Thanks for having us. It's a great pleasure to do the webinar earlier with Richard, and looking forward to this.
Yeah, excellent. So guys, you can find Raoul at Twitter as well. He comes with a handle at Raoul UK. Single word. You'll find that somewhere, I'm sure. So let's go straight into the round of list questions that I ask every speaker, and you can answer at the same time, or you can answer one by one. You don't have to explain this. So, is computer science? This would be easy for you. The first one: is computer science a real science?
Yes.
50-50.
Oh, and a PhD is talking. It depends. So, what do you prefer more static or dynamic typing?
Static.
Excellent. What is your favorite JVM language?
That's an interesting one. Something Scala and Java day-to-day language, to be honest, that we use for courses. But Scala, I'm quite excited by how it's developing, and I see a good future for it personally.
I'm quite happy with Java.
Yeah, that's a surprisingly frequent answer. Just Java. So this would be tough. What is your favorite open source project? JUnit?
It's quite exciting. JUnit, there was recently a crowdfunding campaign, so that's looking like it's going to have a great future with Lambda, so quite exciting. So JUnit is a good chance.
Fascinating. I'm gonna run with the Linux kernel, mainly because it's making this discussion so hilarious.
Deep and fascinating project indeed. So, what is the worst thing a programmer can do? What's the worst habit of software developers?
So partly speaking for myself, but yes, partly speaking about software developers in general, being an arrogant breed. That's always our downfall.
Yeah. Not helping your fellow peers. I think I think more people should just help each other out. You know, we're in the same industry, we're progressing together. So people can be a bit difficult sometimes.
I agree. Those are terrible things to do and terrible things to avoid helping. So I think personally, as an industry, we're going in the right direction here. So lately, I've seen much more helping people in the ecosystem. And to be honest, Java ecosystem is great in this regard.
Yep.
They have tons of conferences and tons of people that want to share the experience. So let's dive into longer questions, and let's start with Richard first, probably. So the session was on generics, and you mentioned like serializable lambdas at some point of time, which I'm sure like that phrase serializable lambda makes hearts of several Java JDK developers just race in horror, because that might be terrible. So what is the most And you've seen plenty of terrible code with generics, and you've showed some examples to us today of good and not so good code. So what is the most terrible Lambda that you have seen? What should people avoid when they use Lambdas?
I think the ones are where people like see kind of idioms or restrictions, and they view them as being a kind of a thing they need to work around. So a classic example is, they try and mutate some state by creating a single element array and put that in a local variable and then resize that single element array. Just if you feel like you need to do that, just don't use them. Or use them properly, even better.
I don't think I've seen that I agree it's really ugly and disgusting. I don't think I've seen it in practice that often, this sort of trick. At least.
No, I have seen it though.
That's true. Probably not the code you want to be tasked with maintaining. But then again, like that often comes from inexperience. And I know that junior developers, or well, actually almost all developers want to learn and they love to learn. But a typical Java shop, they do like a lot of web apps, which might be a bit different. So usually I would recommend to go and find an open source project to like go sift through code and like explore and learn from there. So do you have an example of good open source project to read the code and learn, or maybe you can recommend some kind of training or just to encourage junior developers, entry-level developers to grow as Java developers?
I think actually JUnit's pretty good. I don't know if you've looked at it, but it's one of the few. I mean, I don't know whether it's completely done like that now, but there were a bunch of things where they actually TDD'd the whole thing themselves to begin with, and they've actually got relatively readable code in some respects. I'm not 100% sure that many open source projects have good code. I don't want to say that as like it's worse than anything, but after a certain size, it tends to degrade. Or very few things have that great a code base. To be honest, there's plenty of bad things to go around.
Well, what I would recommend, not recommend in terms of the best code to look at, but actually looking at the source of the JDK library is fantastic. How the collection is implemented, how is the string API implemented. I always have a lot of fun in TLJ. Come on, you just explore a little bit around, see how things are implemented. That's a great learning experience, because things like collections is actually quite a complex topic, so it's interesting to look at.
Yeah, and actually the source code of Java is very vast. So, and as long as you don't go into the concurrency utilities, you will probably see the good code.
Concurrent classes.
There's quite a few bits that have quite bad code there. It's just the question we're going to say. Swing, for example, I've seen quite a bit of bad code in Swing. If you ever look through that.
Also, like calling names and pointing fingers now, I'm pretty sure.
Well, it was. I think the reality is that sometimes you write some code and then it doesn't get the amount of care and attention that perhaps it deserves, and I think that's probably what's what's happened there.
It might have happened, but like as we talk about OpenJDK maybe and Java JDK code, so Raoul, maybe we'll start with you now this time. So you've touched on in the session, you've touched on the topic of value types, right? And they're coming in Java 10, which unfortunately Java 10 is not around the corner, and Java 10 is not like in the near future. It's further away. Java 9 is not even released. So what do you think in general on Java release process, and should it be like more iterative maybe, and should it be less backwards compatible? Like, do we need to remove unsafe? Would that make life of regular developers better or worse for the type eraser?
What I appreciate, at least I think the Java team is doing a fantastic work. They're keeping the community engaged, asking for feedback, presenting at conferences. The mailing lists are really awesome. Everything's being discussed. If you want to try a project out, download the source, build it, run it. So I think they're doing some tremendous work here to get involved with the community. So things like what you were saying, unsafe, for example, controversial topic. Well, there have been several surveys and lots of emails on mailing lists to find out what the community is thinking about it. So I think the team is doing a great job. Personally, I would say it really depends. So it's trade-offs in backward compatibility and features that you're pushing in the language. I think it's great that Java keeps its backward compatible philosophy. That's probably one of the main reasons why we all love it and we can trust it. That's great. If you're interested in fancy language features as a way to progress in your career, there are alternative programming language for you to look at. So that's my take on it.
Well, that's a very solid and mature point of view. I've seen that RC chat was much less accepting Java's slow pace. Not forgetting. Let's not forget. Yeah, I completely agree. Let's not forget that Java is a gigantic machine covering like many hundreds of businesses, and moving in that size is just not that easy. So maybe the last question for you guys, because I promise this will be a short one. Currently, JokerConf conference is happening, which is allegedly a great conference. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there this year. What do you think are the best conferences the whole year round for people, like regular Java developers? Again, not the most low-level stuff. What a great conference that you can recommend, or meetups or events besides VirtualJack?
VirtualJack is obviously the best one.
I think the conference I've been to that I been every year for a few years, and I've always enjoyed it. It's always great. I know it's really bizarre, but it's actually the LJC conference. It's one day, no established program, no nothing. It's got a great community spirit. It's got a great community feel that isn't really replicated that well elsewhere. So I'm actually going with that rather than any of the other. There are loads of like really big, really good, well-established conferences. But yeah, LJC conference. If you're in London, just check out the LJC. Probably 28th of November, but there'll be dates confirmed around the time.
Great. Raoul, do you have anything to add?
Good as well. But more deeply, I would say each conference brings a different value, so I wouldn't necessarily rank them. We enjoy all the conferences where we're speaking at. So I think generally attending conferences is a great way to keep up to date with what's going on in the industry and meeting people and discussing as a community. So as a whole, I think it's great.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for your wisdom. Thanks for your answers. Everyone, we had Richard Warburton and Raoul-Gabriel Urma with us today. They ran a great session on Java generics, and I personally enjoyed this a lot. And thank you again for the interview. We'll meet somewhere in a conference or online. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.